Lone wolf attacks. That's what they're calling them now because they don't know what else to call them. You might have seen the news over the weekend about a man named Zale Thompson in New York City who took a hatchet that he had concealed, and when he saw 4 policemen standing together having their pictures taken, he rushed at them. One of them, he swung at his head, and the officer put up his arm. Then he turned the blade on another officer and hit him in the head, and this officer at this time is in critical but stable condition. He was trying to decapitate them, okay? And when the attack first happened, of course, they said, well, this has nothing to do with Islam. He's not a Muslim. He's not a terrorist. He has no terrorist connection, etc. Then they started to read his Facebook page and saw these images in Arabic. And they said, oops, he is, in fact, a recent convert to Islam. And he has been reading some of the more radical elements of Islam online. So now they're calling them self-radicalized. Folks, we have to come to the place where we will see the truth for what it is, all right? If you study the life of Muhammad, you'll see all kinds of lone wolf attacks. Individual men who, following what Muhammad wanted them to do, went and killed someone. There's a story of a Muslim whom Muhammad gave permission to him to lie, to get near an associate, a business associate of him. In another example, a man lured another man into a cave where they were going to spend the night, hang out. They built a little fire, they were eating, and he convinced his soon-to-be victim that he didn't like Muhammad. And so the other man let loose with a stream of invectives against Muhammad and was laughing and mocking Muhammad and singing songs against Muhammad. Well, that man took an arrow and drove it through the eye into the brain of his soon-to-be murdered victim. He then went back to Medina and reported to Muhammad what he had done, and Muhammad belly laughed. The murderer said that he could see Muhammad's white teeth in the back of his mouth. He was laughing so loud and with his mouth open so wide. Muhammad thought this was great. So the lone wolf attacks started happening in the lifetime of Muhammad, with his permission, with his blessing, with his encouragement. Now just compare that, just to make the point, of lone sheep attacks. See, they're commenting that these murderers from Canada and this man in New York City and the murderer in Oklahoma who cut off the head of that woman, God rest her soul, these lone wolves had come into contact with Muhammad. They were recent converts, and then they carried out the deadly deeds of Islam, right, that were exemplified and called for with Muhammad. Think of what a lone sheep attack looks like, a recent convert to Jesus, right? I call it a lone sheep attack just because we all know what it is. Somebody who converts, you might have been one of those lone sheep. Someone converts to Christ, and what do? They just start preaching to everyone. They want to tell everyone, you've got to find Christ. They start telling people they shouldn't drink, they shouldn't smoke, they shouldn't go to the movies, depending on what brand of Protestant Christianity they find themselves in. They'll tell them they can't dance anymore. So, compare the lone sheep attacks of Christianity to the lone wolf attacks of Islam. And at least they're calling them wolves. I mean, at least they got that right. These are wolves, the wolves of Islam, the lone wolves of Islam. And the tragedy is that it's never going to go away as long as Islam is on this earth and there are people who can quote Muhammad and quote the Quran and quote the Hadith. It's just not going to go away. It is a curse on the face of the earth that has been here for 1,400 years. And now we're just beginning to feel it because all of this horror and violence over the course of these centuries was primarily in the areas where the Islamic Empire had its breadth and stretch and was able to impose Sharia law. You know, Snowden is saying, look, they're spying on all of us, which clearly they are. Why don't these people at the CIA and the FBI and various law enforcement agencies start looking at people like this? If they're scrolling through Facebook pages and they see Arabic, that might be a clue. Oh, but that would be profiling. Right. So what you're saying is that profiling might just be common sense, but you're too politically correct to do the right thing? Well, are you saying that all Muslims are violent? No, clearly they're not. Clearly they're not. There's a lot of bad Muslims out there. A lot of moderate Muslims who aren't following the dictates of Muhammad. But just remember, like the Sarnoff brothers in Boston who did the Boston bombing, they're only one or two hadiths away, one or two verses of the Quran away. So maybe, rather than trying to gather all this data on everyone, they should be looking at people who pose an actual real-time threat. Maybe the attacks in Canada or Oklahoma City or New York City wouldn't have happened if they weren't using so many man-hours to just do the dragnet on everybody. God save us from the stupidity of our own government. But in our next segment, I'll tell you how that they hired Nazis. I mean, ethics evidently don't matter, and certainly profiling doesn't matter if they're going to use Nazis.
Hey, everyone's been asking me, when's Unstoppable coming out on DVD? Well, it's here. And I have created my own deluxe signature version of Unstoppable that contains not only the movie, but over 5 hours of additional curriculum and study guides for your family. It's perfect for your homeschool, educational facility, small group Bible study, and family devotions. And I'm going to share with you some of the spiritual warfare that surrounded the release of this film. This box set also includes extended scenes, new music videos, the inside scoop on the whole Facebook controversy. So what are you waiting for? I made this special version with my family in mind, and I know your family will be blessed by it too. Unstoppable 2.0 Deluxe Signature Version, available only here at KurtCameron.com. I can't wait for you to experience what's inside.